Chosen ones. 6 hidden truths about why you're being called into isolation. Some people walk through life carrying a silence the world cannot explain, a quiet knowing, a sacred stillness. You can see it in their eyes. They're present, but not fully anchored in this world. While the masses chase noise, attention, and validation, these souls feel a divine pull toward depth, truth, and solitude. They aren't running away from life. They're responding to a whisper the crowd can't hear. And you, watching this right now, you just might be one of them. People have misunderstood your peace. They've called it antisocial. They've said you're wasting time, avoiding reality, missing out. But God knows better. He sees the weight you carry, the calling you protect, the sensitivity you've been entrusted with. You're not withdrawing in fear. You're being pulled back on purpose. You're not disappearing. You're being developed. This world doesn't know what to do with those who find strength in stillness, but heaven does. You've been set apart, not because you're weak, but because you're being made strong in the secret place. This message isn't here to change your mind. It's here to remind your soul. You're not behind. You're not invisible. You're not strange. You're chosen, and what's been growing in silence is about to speak louder than anything noise could ever produce. Truth 1. You're not isolating, you're healing. They think you've gone quiet, that you've lost your drive, that maybe something's wrong with you. People talk, they ask where you've been, why you don't come around, why the old version of you doesn't show up like it used to. But the truth is, the old version of you isn't coming back, because it was never built to carry the weight of who you're becoming. You're not isolating, you're in. And healing doesn't happen in the spotlight. It doesn't happen in crowded rooms or through forced conversations that never touch the truth. Healing happens in the secret place, in the stillness of your home, where the noise dies down and the truth finally rises. In that sacred quiet, God begins to address wounds you buried under busyness, starts pulling out lies you dressed up as strength. It's not that you're avoiding the world, it's that your soul is finally choosing not to be entangled by it. There's a reason nothing out there feels right anymore. The places that once excited you now feel hollow. The conversations that once entertained you now sound like static. The people you once tried to keep up with now feel distant. Not because they changed, but because you're seeing with clearer eyes. You've outgrown the spaces that required you to shrink, and the silence you're sitting in now, it isn't empty, it's full of God. Even Jesus, fully divine, yet fully human, knew the power of stepping away. But Jesus often withdrew to lonely places and prayed. Luke 5:16. He didn't wait until he was burned out. He didn't wait for approval. He withdrew often, because connection to the Father was more important than the crowd's affirmation. That's the blueprint. That's the pattern you've been following, whether you realized it or not. And while others mislabel your solitude as sadness, God sees it as sacred. You're not running from people, you're running to presence. You're no longer interested in performing for a world that only applauds the surface. Your spirit is done settling for shallow. You want real. You want deep. You want holy. You're shedding the pressure to explain yourself, the urge to defend your distance. You're letting go of the fear that says you'll be forgotten if you're not constantly available, because deep down, you know this isn't a disappearance. It's a divine appointment. And it had to happen this way. God couldn't speak what he needed to speak to you in a room full of noise. He needed your undivided attention, your full surrender, your raw and quiet yes. This is not isolation. This is transformation. This is the breaking of old patterns, the cleansing of tired habits, the healing of wounds no one clapped for but God saw all along. You're not falling apart. You're being rebuilt. You're being stripped of every false layer, so that when you rise again, and you will, it won't be as a version of who others expected, but as the one God always intended. So don't rush this season. Don't apologize for it. Don't let their confusion make you question your clarity. You are not behind. You are not lazy. You are not hiding. You are healing, and healing is holy. Let God finish what He started in you. Stay home if you must. Pull back if you need to. The world will still be there. But when you return, you won't come back the same. You'll come back whole. Truth 2. Your energy is sacred. That's why you feel everything. You weren't made to absorb chaos. You were made to discern it and choose peace. But for a long time you didn't know the difference. You thought something was wrong with you because crowds made you feel dizzy, because certain people left you feeling drained for no reason, because you'd walk into a room and your whole body would tense up before anyone even spoke. But now you're starting to understand it's not anxiety, it's spiritual awareness. Your body reacts to dishonesty before your mind can explain it. Your spirit recoils from manipulation even when it's dressed in politeness. You've tried to ignore it, to tell yourself you were being dramatic. But the more you silenced that voice inside, the more you suffered. Now God is bringing you back to the place where you can trust that inner knowing again. That's not paranoia, that's protection. There are things you can feel that others miss entirely. You walk into certain environments and sense that something happened there, even if the room is silent. You pick up on grief. Someone is hiding behind a smile. You feel competition behind friendly words. And all of that takes energy. You're not tired because you're lazy. You're tired because your spirit has been working overtime in a world that doesn't know how to rest. You need the stillness, not because you're fragile, but because you're faithful. You've been given a fit, and that gift must be guarded. Discernment is a spiritual assignment, not a social one. That's why God has been teaching you to withdraw, not to disconnect from people, but to reconnect with Him. Because if you're constantly plugged into the noise, you'll lose the frequency of heaven. And right now, your calling depends on your ability to hear what others miss. This is why your desire to be alone has grown stronger. Not because you hate people, not because you're shutting down, but because your spirit is craving clarity. You're learning how to protect your peace like it's a part of your purpose. Because it is, and in protecting that peace, you've discovered something deeper. Your energy was never meant to be given freely to everything and everyone. It was meant to be entrusted carefully, prayerfully, intentionally. The people around you might not get it. They might think you're too quiet, too guarded, too intense. But that's because they've never carried what you carry. They don't know what it's like to walk into a room and feel the emotional residue of people who left hours ago. They don't know what it's to pick up burdens no one asked you to carry, simply because your heart is open and your spirit is sensitive. You're not cold, you're careful. You're not closed, you're consecrated. God didn't give you this level of awareness for entertainment. He gave it to you for intercession, for insight, for impact. But before you can use it publicly, He has to teach you how to live with it privately. That's why He's called you into quiet places, into long, unhurried days where you're not surrounded by distraction, into rooms where the loudest sound is your own heartbeat and the presence of God. It's in that silence that your discernment is sharpened, not dull. It's in that space that your spirit is trained to respond, not to noise but to truth. You don't need to apologize for how deeply you feel. You don't need to tone it down or explain it away. You need to guard it. Because the moment you begin to see this sensitivity not as a burden but as a blueprint, everything changes. You begin to make different decisions. You begin to choose peace over pressure, truth over tradition, presence over performance. And yes, it might mean you walk alone sometimes. It might mean fewer invitations, fewer explanations, fewer people who truly understand. But it will also mean more clarity, more alignment, more intimacy with the one who gave you this gift in the first place. So let the world mislabel your silence. Let them misread your solitude. You don't owe them access. What God is still developing in private. You don't need permission to protect your peace. Your energy is sacred. Your spirit is sensitive. For a reason. And as you learn to honor that, without guilt, without shame, without compromise, you'll begin to see that what others call too much was always just the right amount, for the purpose God has placed inside you. Truth 3. Your soul recognizes a different timing. You don't move like everyone else, and deep down, you've always known that. While others rush to the next thing, jump into decisions, chase trends and timelines, something in you hesitates. You pause. You wait. Not out of fear, but because something inside tells you it's not time yet. And for most of your life, that pause has made you feel out of sync with the world, like you were behind, like you were missing out. But the truth is, you've never been behind. You've just been following a different rhythm, a divine one. Your soul knows the difference between movement and momentum, between progress and pressure. The world says hurry. God says wait. The world says go faster. God says be still. And that conflict, that tension between the external pressure and the internal peace, is what you've been navigating. But your spirit is wise. It doesn't respond to clocks or calendars. It responds to calling. That's why you don't rush into things just because others say it's time. That's why your spirit resists environments that celebrate speed but neglect purpose. You've watched people build fast and fall faster. You've seen doors open that weren't God's timing, the damage that followed. And now, even if you can't always explain it, you've started to trust that still, subtle voice that says, not yet. That voice is heaven's guardrail. It's protection disguised as delay. There's a reason home feels right in this season. There's a reason silence speaks louder than opportunity. You're not being held back. You're being held together. God is working behind the scenes in ways you can't measure, rearranging pieces you can't see. And while the world is sprinting toward platforms and praise, He's building something sacred in you, something that won't collapse under pressure, because it's rooted in presence. Ecclesiastes 3:1 says, "To everything there is a season, and a time to every purpose under heaven." Your soul lives by that truth. That's why you've never felt comfortable rushing. That's why shortcuts never sat right with you. You've always sensed that what's truly meant for you won't require you to compromise who you are to get it. But the waiting hasn't been easy. It's tested you. It's stripped you. It's forced you to confront the fear that maybe you missed your moment, that maybe you waited too long, that maybe something's wrong with you because your life doesn't look like theirs. But none of that is true. The delay is not denial. It's design. God didn't forget you. He's forming you. Because when He sends you out, it won't be half prepared or half healed. It won't be reaction. It'll be revelation. And those who didn't understand your silence, those who mocked your stillness, will wonder how you rose with such clarity, such power, such authority. But you'll know, it was all birthed in the waiting. So don't be ashamed of your pace. Don't shrink because others can't see what's growing inside of you. Don't rush to prove something to people who were never assigned to your process. Keep listening, keep watching, keep honoring the rhythm your soul knows by heart, because you weren't created to keep up. You were created to stand out. And in a world that glorifies speed, your stillness is your strength. In a world obsessed with arrival, your alignment is your anchor. Stay in step with the Spirit. Wait when He says wait. Move when He says move. Because when the timing is right, when the preparation is complete, when the door opens, not only will you be ready, but you'll be unshakable. And the world will call it sudden, but you'll know it was sacred. Truth 4. You're not lonely. You're connected on a higher level. People assume you're lonely because you spend so much time alone. They think your silence means emptiness. Your solitude means sadness. But they don't understand what really happens in your quiet. They don't see the fullness you feel when the world is finally still. They don't know the sacred presence that fills the room when no one else is there. You're not lonely. You're connected on a level that doesn't always make sense to those who haven't tasted it. You've learned that God doesn't always speak in crowds. Sometimes his loudest words come in the softest moments. A whisper in the early morning, a thought that pierces through your heart in the middle of an ordinary task, a tear that falls not from sadness, but from the weight of being seen by heaven. That's not loneliness, that's intimacy. The reason noise exhausts you isn't because you're weak, it's because your soul is tuned to hear something deeper. When you spend time alone, you're not trying to escape people. You're making room for God. You're clearing the space where truth can speak louder than performance, where your heart can finally exhale, where your spirit can rest without pretending. And in that rest, you meet the one who never leaves, never interrupts, never demands more than what you are. There are moments in your solitude that feel more alive than anything the outside world could offer. The morning light hitting your floor while worship music plays softly in the background. The stillness of a room where you've been praying, pacing, surrendering. The journal entries that turn into conversations with heaven. You've tasted that quiet, and now the noise can never satisfy you again. Most people don't sit long enough in silence to experience the weight of God's presence. They fill every minute with motion, every moment with noise. They fear the quiet because it confronts them. But you, chosen one, you've stopped running from that confrontation. You've leaned into it. You've learned to hear God in the slow moments, in the in-between spaces, in the parts of life most people rush past. Jesus often withdrew to be alone, not because he needed distance from people, but because he needed closeness with the Father. That's the pattern you're following. It doesn't mean you're disconnected from others. It means you're rooted somewhere deep. You're drawing from a well that doesn't run dry. And while others need constant affirmation to feel seen, you've found a way to feel known in silence. Of course, there are days when it's heavy. Days when you long for connection that feels as deep as the conversations you have with God. Days when the phone doesn't ring and it stings more than you want to admit. But even in that ache, you know you are not alone. You are being held by something eternal, surrounded by something unseen, strengthened by something sacred. This path you're walking wasn't designed for crowds. It's narrow for a reason. And on this narrow road, it's not the company of many that sustains you. It's the communion of one. That's where your confidence grows. That's where your spirit expands. That's where your identity is rooted. Not in how many people check in on you, but in how deeply you've been marked by the presence of God. Let them misunderstand you. Let them project their fear of silence onto your peace. You don't need to convince them that your solitude is holy. You just need to keep showing up for the quiet where you're being transformed. Because this isn't isolation. This is consecration. You're not empty. You're being filled. You're not lost. You're being led. And every quiet moment is shaping something in you that noise could never build. Your connection isn't horizontal. It's vertical. And that's why you feel alone to people who only see what's on the surface. But heaven knows. Heaven sees. Heaven is near. And in that nearness, your loneliness becomes something altogether different. It becomes presence. It becomes clarity. It becomes strength. You're not waiting to be found. You've already been chosen. And in this quiet space that the world calls loneliness, you're discovering a connection that cannot be shaken. Keep listening. Keep sitting. Keep showing up for the silence. Because what others run from, you were born to carry. Truth 5. Your house is your altar. To most people, a house is just a building. 4 walls, a roof, maybe a couch and a bed. A place to eat, to sleep, to get ready before heading back into the world. But for you, it's never been just that. You walk through your front door and something shifts. The noise fades, the weight lifts, your breath deepens. It's not just comfort, it's something spiritual. Because your house has become your altar. It's the place where you take off the armor, where the masks fall away, where the noise of the world can't reach you and the presence of God meets you in the silence. The moment you close the door, something inside exhales. This is where your soul speaks freely, where your spirit is heard, where your heart is safe. You're not hiding from the world, you're entering holy ground. There are spaces in your home where encounters happen. A specific chair, a corner of the room, the floor you've knelt on again and again. You've wept there. You've worshipped there. You've questioned everything and received answers not through thunder, but through peace. The kind of peace that can't be explained. The kind that covers you like a blanket and makes you realize you were never alone, even in your silence. Jesus said in Matthew 6:6, "But when you pray, go into your room, close the door, and pray to your Father, who is unseen. Then your Father, who sees what is done in secret, will reward you." That verse isn't just about prayer. It's about preparation, about a secret place where God sees you, met you, molds you, and your home has become that secret place. The world looks for platforms, but heaven looks for altars, and while others are chasing stages and influence, you've been building something unseen, a life of quiet obedience, a rhythm of worship that no one else hears, a consistency in prayer that no one else applauds, but heaven sees it, heaven honors it. The walls of your house have heard more truth, more surrender, more transformation than many pulpits. Every time you light a candle, play that soft worship, open your Bible, or sit in stillness with God, your home shifts. It's not superstition, it's consecration. You are hosting the presence of God. And the presence you've cultivated there through hard days, through lonely nights, through faithful mornings, is changing you. You've stopped needing the outside world to validate what you know is sacred. You don't need to be out there to feel alive. You've found a sanctuary, and in that sanctuary, your mind clears, your spirit realigns, your purpose sharpens. That's not laziness. That's spiritual intelligence. Because you've realized that what happens in your private space determines how you show up in public. This is why your home matters so much. Why you've become sensitive to what enters it. The sounds, the conversations, the people, the energy. You're not being overly picky. You're protecting the frequency, because your house isn't just where you live. It's where your future is being formed, where your faith is being stretched, where your heart is being purified. Some days it's quiet, some days it's heavy, but every day it's sacred. And the longer you stay faithful to this quiet space, the more powerful your presence becomes. Because the ones who build altars in secret are the ones God sends out in strength. Don't rush out of this. Don't despise the days of hiddenness. Don't feel guilty for loving your solitude. You're not stuck. You're being sanctified. And the altar you've in your home is not in vain. It's the very reason you'll be able to carry what others collapse under, because you've been in the presence, because your roots are deep, because your foundation wasn't built on applause, it was built on anointing. Stay in that place. Keep it holy, keep it protected, keep it alive, because when the time comes for you to step out, you won't be going out to find yourself. You'll be stepping out from the place where you already did. And the world won't understand it. But your home, the altar you've built, will know. Heaven will know. And every moment you spent alone in that room will rise with you, not as a memory, but as a mantle. Truth 6. They won't understand, and that's confirmation. They'll call you distant. They'll say you're too quiet, too intense, too withdrawn. They'll tell you to loosen up, to get out more, to stop thinking so deeply. They'll assume something's wrong, because you don't move with the crowd, because you're not chasing the same things, because you no longer find comfort in shallow company. But the truth is, they don't understand. And that's not your burden to carry. It's your confirmation. They don't see what you see. They haven't felt what you felt. They haven't been marked by the stillness that changed you. They're still chasing things you've already let go of. Still hungry for the attention you've learned to live without, still measuring life by what's seen, while you've learned to value the unseen. You used to explain yourself. You used to try and make them understand why you needed space, why the parties drained you, why you left early or didn't show up at all. You felt guilty for choosing peace over pressure. But now, You're starting to realize some people are never meant to understand your process because they were never called to walk your path. The narrow road doesn't come with applause. It comes with misunderstanding, with distance, with being set apart. Not in theory, but in lifestyle. That's what being chosen looks like. It's not glamorous. It's not loud. It's not always comfortable. But it is holy. It is intentional. It is necessary. You're not building the kind of life that impresses people. You're building the kind of life that obeys God. And obedience often looks like isolation to those who don't know the sound of His voice. They see silence and call it weakness. They see retreat and call it fear. But God sees it all and calls it alignment. There's a depth in you now that didn't come from books or conversations. It came from the silence, from the nights you spent alone, wrestling with doubt, learning how to trust God without evidence. From the mornings you woke up heavy, but kept praying anyway. From the seasons where you disappeared from the noise, not because you quit, but because you were being redefined. And now when people say they don't get it, why you're so private, why you're always home, why you've changed so much, let them say it, let them misunderstand, because they're speaking from the level they live on. And you've been called higher. You've tasted something too deep to go back to the surface. You've heard something too sacred to drown it out with noise. You've seen what happens when you give God your full attention, and now distractions cost too much. You're not interested in going where everyone else is going. You're interested in becoming who God said you are. And that requires separation. You're not lonely. You're being led. You're not confused. You're being called. You're not falling behind. You're being prepared. And the more misunderstood you feel, the more clarity you gain. Because the closer you walk with God, the fewer people can walk with you. Not because you're better, but because the weight of your calling requires space. Let them talk. Let them question. Let them assume their misunderstanding doesn't disqualify your mission. It proves it's real, because what's holy has never made sense to what's common. You weren't called to be understood. You were called to be obedient. You weren't made to fit in. You were made to carry something sacred. Keep walking. Keep building in the silence. Keep guarding your space, your mind, your energy, because the time will come when the very people who don't understand your quiet now will come to you, searching for the peace they've never found in noise. And when that time comes, you'll be ready. Not because you chased recognition, but because you honored your solitude. You don't have to be loud to be powerful. You don't have to be seen to be significant. The world may not understand your path, but heaven does. And every moment you've spent becoming who God called you to be, without an audience, without applause, will echo in eternity. So let them misunderstand. Your clarity was never meant to be explained. It was meant to be lived. Conclusion: you were never hiding. You were being prepared. You've been walking a road that few notice, and even fewer understand. A road marked not by noise, but by stillness. Not by crowds, but by quiet spaces. And along the way, you've probably questioned yourself. Wondered if something was wrong with you. Wondered why you've always felt out of place in rooms that others seem to thrive in. Why your soul craved silence when the world shouted for attention. But now you know. Now you see what's really been happening. You haven't been drifting. You've been drawing closer to truth, to clarity, to God. The solitude you once resented has become your sanctuary. The silence you feared has become your strength. The distance you kept wasn't avoidance. It was alignment. Every moment you've spent away from the noise, every invitation you turned down, every season you spent hidden, it all mattered. It was all preparing you. You weren't created to blend in. You weren't called to follow the crowd. You were chosen to carry sacred, and sacred things are not exposed to just anyone. Sacred things are hidden, protected, refined in private. So when you look back and see all the quiet nights, the quiet prayers, the quiet tears, you'll also see the quiet power that grew because of them. You've been becoming someone rooted, someone focused, someone strong. You've been becoming the version of yourself that the noise tried to drown, but the silence resurrected. And now you walk with a deeper sense of who you are, not because someone told you, but because God showed you, in the stillness, in the secret place, in the silence. Don't be in a rush to leave this space. Don't let the pressure of the world pull you out of the presence of God. The world is loud, but clarity is quiet. The world moves fast, but destiny takes its time. And you, chosen one, are right on schedule. Not the world's schedule, heaven's. So hold your silence close. Honor your solitude. Protect your peace. This isn't the end of your journey. It's the foundation of it. And when the time comes to step out, you won't be stepping out as someone who's been hiding. You'll be stepping out as someone who's been healing, someone who's been preparing, someone who's ready. You're not behind, you're not lost, you're not invisible. You are chosen, you are aligned, you are rising. And when the world finally hears the voice that's been shaped in silence, they won't just listen, they'll be changed.